All right. Yes. I know. I don't know what that is. Some glitch. I'll fix it later. Don't worry about it. Can you guys sign in now for attendance right now? It works now?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Thank you very much. All right. Recording. This class will be recorded on Zoom, every class, as the school recommends. I also have a camera there. Recorded to YouTube. In fact, they're live streaming. I'm streaming as we speak right now. I teach this same class twice in a day. I have property 2 at 2 o'clock, and then property 2 again with you all at 5:45. It is entirely appropriate if you want to watch the earlier class before you come to class. I mean, it's not required, but you can. You can also watch a lecture from a prior year before you come to class, which I encourage you to do. If you go to the syllabus, which I'll pull up in a moment, I have links to all the prior YouTube playlists. Now, I encourage you to check out 2019 rather than 2020. 2020 was my COVID semester. It wasn't the best. You'll see a little box instead of actual people walking around. So definitely check out the lectures beforehand. All right. I want to highlight a few other things from the syllabus. First off, I know people care about this immensely. The exam's open book. Bring whatever you want. It will not help you. It will not help you. Open book exams are actually a lot harder because memorization is not very important. You will have just enough time to finish. So whatever outline you want to bring it. It will not help you. It's not a crutch. And please, if anyone wants more cookies, bring them for your families. Please, I don't want to bring any of these home. I have all of my old exams online. And people always ask about this, so I tell you the first day of class. I also have the A+ answer, as well as a memo, at least in the last couple of years, explaining why the answers what they are. We will have a midterm in this class, but halfway through. It's not graded, but we'll do an in-class midterm. I'll pick one of my old exams. I'm not sure which one yet. I won't tell you. It'll be one of the old ones, so you can at least prepare in advance if you want. Okay. Attendance, please sign in. Don't make me remind you. Office hours. I know for evening students, office hours are very tricky because a lot of you are commuting, coming from work, coming from who knows where. Who has the furthest commute? Just curious. The furthest commute to school. Who drives the furthest amongst you? 80. Huh? Lisa, that's pretty far. Conroe, that's even farther. You live in Dallas? No, don't joke. I had one student a couple years ago. She lived in Huntsville and drove 2.5 hours. I'm serious. She drove 2.5 hours each way every day. I couldn't believe it. She I think a Starbucks like this big. I don't know how she even existed. And she was my evening con law class till 9:15 p.m. And she had to get home like at 11 or 12 o'clock every night. Anyway, so I was curious. I had a student another year who lived in College Station, which is also pretty darn far. Anyway, okay, so League City. Okay, so I know you all have long commutes. If you can see me before class, I'll be in my office. I know you have a short break. Do you have a class after this? How long is your break before the next class starts? Okay, so if you want to see me after this class, that's fine. I'll be in the office. Happy to come. Just walk up with me so I know you're coming, and I'm just sitting around waiting for no one. So just walk up with me, and I'm happy to talk to you. All right. If you want to schedule Zoom or phone office hours during the week, we can do that. I'm happy to set that up. It's actually very easy. Just email me. I'm very responsive to emails. Recordings. Again, all of our classes are recorded. Camera's right there. I actually have a mic over here, so wherever I go, the mic follows me. This is a nice piece of tech. I used to have to actually carry a microphone around. It's much worse. It's a lot more elegant. There are a couple links on the syllabus I want to flag. One is the class notes. So if you see here, it says Section B. That is you all. Section B, lecture notes. And you'll see here there are 30-something documents. They're all blank, except for today's. I will. Where is it? Section B. There it is. Okay. So I will paste various links here, various poll questions here, different things. If you can't see the board, you can bring it up on your computer. Whatever I type here, blah, 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 whatever, right? It shows up on your screen. So you can use it however is easier for you. Sometimes these monitors on the side are not the easiest to see. I know it's a weird angle, so you can bring up on your computer. All right, so just at least before class, look over those notes. I also have these case summaries, which are for your benefit. If you, are you taking common law yet, or are you taking it now? Anyway, so you took common law already. So I have a book in common law about 100 Supreme Court cases everyone should know. I'm writing a similar book for property, where these sort of short summaries of every case. I will post these usually the day of class, the night before. I want to make sure they're not posted too early, so you actually have to read the case. Those will be posted for you. Use them. They're very useful summaries of the case, and they also highlight what I'm looking for. Okay. The calendar. I am a bit of a stickler. Whatever I assign, I'm going to cover. I don't fall behind. Hasn't happened yet. So if you are, I know you're all evening students, you have jobs, you know what we're covering each class. The upshot is there's no guessing what you have to cover. The downside is I'm expecting you to be prepared every day, right? You are all on call every day. And I do the recitation perhaps a little differently than some other classes. I don't think anyone here's had me before. So is that Lance right there? Lance? So Lance is going to be up first, just so you happen to be in the front row. I'm sorry, sir. So the way I do is I ask Lance one question, and I'll go to Alex, and then I'll go to Kirk, and I'll go to Jacob, then Victor, then Jason, and then Jose, and then Anthony, Craig. I go up and down the rows, and everyone gets one, two, maybe three questions. It depends what you actually say, right? The stronger your answer is, you probably get off the hook quicker. But if you give me something that's not exactly what I'm looking for, I will try it again. If you're not prepared, I will come back to you later, and I'll come back to you with a question that did not require you to do the reading. Oh, we can do that, right? You're sitting here in class. I think you're paying attention. So I'll come back to you with a question that's based on something that. Thank you so much. That's based. Everyone get a marker and name tag? Everyone have it? Okay, good. Thank you. But I'll come back to you again. So if you're not prepared, I will come back to you. If you're not prepared again, I'll come back to you again. So in a class this small, about 30 of you, I'll probably call in everyone every class. I did about, oh, yeah, it's true. I can do about 40 or 50 if I'm hustling, but 30 I can get you all. So you're basically on call every class. So just be ready for it. Again, that's why I say the lectures from last year are online. You can see what questions I'm going to ask in advance. I'm not that original, right? So it rewards those. No, it's true. I've taught this class a number of times before. In fact, my very first class ever was adverse possession. The first class I've ever taught in law school was this exact topic. That just happened to be how it worked out. So I've taught this class before. So just be prepared. Attendance again. So I know you're all coming. Please try to be here on time. I am not going to yell at people if they come in a minute late. If you find it distracting, I'm sorry. I've done this before where I become a very strict person on attendance, and if you're 1 second late, I start yelling at you. And I can't do it every year. It burns everyone out. No one likes it. So it's on you, right? So if someone comes late and it's distracting, blame the classmate. Don't blame me. But try to be here on time as best as you can. I know, especially with long commutes, it's not always possible. All right. I think I covered all the preliminary stuff they want to cover. Are there any questions before we get started? You're also quiet with the cookies, good? Yeah, good cookies. Okay, I'm glad. I actually only had one. I had one during my other class. I bought a bunch. I bought like 7 or 8 boxes of these today, so I'm glad they're good. You should get Costco cookies, but try Randall's cookies this time. A little bit closer, but I think they were. Costco ones are cheaper though. Okay. All right. Anything else? All right. Let's get started. Before we actually begin, I want to play a video for you. This is a video. It's a little bit dated. It's from 2011 or so, but it involves an adverse possession, um, issue in Flower Mound, which is outside of Dallas. Yeah, if anyone knows where it is. All right, so let me play this video. That's what I want to do. All right, it's not working. Second, sorry. Oh, why is this not working? Oh, it's on mute. That's why. Sorry. Let's start again. It was like a knock. It was a knock. Okay. All right. So I always like to start off the semester with a video. I think it's actually very useful to talk about. Let me ask a question as a poll before we get started. Just this is the first question for you. There's no right or wrong answer. I just want to get an opinion. Um, who do you agree with here? Do you agree with Mr. Robinson, or do you agree with the neighbors? And there's no answer that's right or wrong. I just want to see where you guys are. Oh, I'm polling. Yeah. Thank you for your answer. But just I want to see the percentages. Another 10 seconds or so. All right, I'll stop it here. Let's see. Oh, wow. Okay. All right. About 70% for Mr. Robinson, about 80% for Mr. Robinson, about 20% for neighbor. All right, Lance. So what's your thinking here?
I chose Mr. Robinson. He followed the applicable law just because people aren't aware of it.
Well, how is this? I hate to say this on the first day of class, but how is this right? How can it be that a guy can just walk in, pay for a few dollars of paperwork, and acquire a $300,000 house? How can that possibly be the rule?
Because it's abandoned. It's not like you stole someone's house. The people who originally owned it foreclosed on it because they.
But what's the difference between this guy and just a trespasser who just walks into a house? I mean, just filing some paperwork makes all the difference.
Yeah, because no one owns the home. There's nobody actually there at the time.
Hmm.
The bank or whoever had the loan, the ownership, no longer exists. So it's essentially anyone who filed the correct paperwork.
Okay, Alex, what'd you put here?
The neighbor.
Okay, why'd you say neighbor?
The home is owned by the mortgage company. Just walked in and, claimed his possession of the home.
Right, but why didn't the mortgage company then do something about it? Why did the mortgage company leave the house vacant like this?
There's administrative issues. I mean, if they're in bankruptcy, it takes years to sort out all this stuff.
Like foreclosure, you mean?
Well, foreclosure, and they said the mortgage company was out of business, but that means they're just in bankruptcy.
All right, Kirk, what'd you put here?
I actually put A. I agree with Mr. Robinson. I disagree with the police that it's a record of real estate. Not
Oh yeah, let me ask that. So if you notice in the video, it said the neighbors called the cops, right? Go like, this is a civil matter. This is not a criminal matter. Didn't you guys learn in torts or criminal law first year, if you enter a property it's not yours, you're trespassing? Why?
Yeah.
Why did the cops do nothing here, Kirk?
Well, there was no owner actually pressed charges.
Oh, so it was a neighbor who called in the cops.
Yeah, I mean, which is sufficient to me.
All right. So if you just go back about a decade ago, there was a huge foreclosure crisis. Some of you may recall this, where a lot of people acquired homes with very low interest rates. And then the value of the home plummeted such that the amount on the mortgage was more than the house was worth. Right. So basically the house became worth less than the debt, and people couldn't sell it. No one would pay for the amount that was actually due. So a number of people just started to walk away. They walked away from their homes and they abandoned them. And a number of mortgage companies just went out of business. They just shut down because they had all this debt that no one was paying for and they couldn't service it. So you had, these neighborhoods like in this Dallas suburb with all these very well manicured, beautiful houses where the original owners just vacated. The bank went out of business. They couldn't do the foreclosure process, and the houses were just empty. Right? No one was using them. So enter Mr. Robinson, right? Who became something of a little celebrity. He actually started giving lectures on how to use adverse possession. I think he had a lecture at SMU or something. He made he made a business out of it. Actually, I think he was actually being paid to give this sort of advice. Whether his advice is good or not, I'll let you all decide. But he started explaining to people that he can become the record owner of this property. And if you notice, it showed on the screen, he went to the courthouse and he filed some paperwork. Right? Now, Jacob, let me ask you a question. How can it possibly be fair? Putting aside, okay, I understand that's the law, right? But how is this a law that actually makes sense? Why are we allowing someone who's effectively a trespasser to acquire this valuable piece of property just by sticking around? How is that possibly a good rule of law?
Sometimes the property doesn't match with reality. So when we're quieting title like this, I mean, this is kind of an odd example, but otherwise it exists so that we may correct the record for how people have been living in a certain area or property.
But here the house was just vacant for, let's say a few months. I don't know. How could it be that if he just sticks around for, let's say, 3 years, becomes his? How can that possibly be a fair rule of law? I mean, that's what I'm asking. Why is this a fair rule?
I mean, abandoned property it can be anyone's. Here, the bank is gone, the original owner's gone.
But eventually the bank, I think Alex mentioned bankruptcy, right? Eventually someone will come into ownership of the house, right? Might take 1 year, might take 2 years, might take 3 years. But I'm asking more fundamentally, forget Robinson. Why is adverse possession a fair rule? Just basic question.
I mean, like I said, just it's fair rule to. Sometimes it's not. Definitely, you can. It can be perceived as taking.
What value does adverse possession serve?
To correct the record.
Correct what record?
How if there's a discrepancy between reality.
I don't know what you mean by, but I'm not sure what you're meaning by discrepancy between reality.
Professor Boulanger gave an example of.
Did you guys cover this Koolander last semester also? Both of my classes. Okay, so I'm on to you, right? So you gave it away real quick. Another student gave away about 45 minutes in. So all right, so tell me what Koolander said about this.
So sometimes like living on a property for generations, so they don't actually.
Okay, now I see what you're getting at. Right, so that's mean by reality. Okay. It's funny, I saw Chris in the elevator. I'm like, thanks, Chris. You taught my 2 classes already. So I can actually be a little more free then in how I'm covering this, because since you already covered it. All right, so Victor, let me ask you this question. If we were writing on a blank slate, right, how would you write an adverse possession statute? If we were writing on a blank slate, right? How would you try to handle the situation of abandoned property without rewarding people with bad faith?
If I was writing it with a blank slate, I would probably increase the notice element of adverse possession to make it even more clear to people of what is happening in there, because it's, adverse possession works whenever you spend a certain amount of time on land and other people don't know that you're there. But if they increase the notice element of adverse possession, then, it wouldn't happen as much because people would know what people are trying to do.
Okay. All right. So let's. God, it makes it so frustrating when you already cover this stuff. Yeah, Kirk.
Well, it seems like in the flip, the issue of fairness is that the neighbors don't feel like it's fair because they all paid for their house, right? So like Victor's saying, if you're creating a new script for the element of fairness, you may put in, well, Karen next door has to report if Mr. Robinson leaves the property at all in that 3 years, then she can give him notice that he's, in violation or whatever.
All right. So let's actually walk through the elements, which you've all covered, but we'll do it again. Adverse possession. Make this nice and easy. There are not many elements, like 4 elements like you have in torts. This is actually pretty rare. It's one of the few cases where there's actually elements of a test, but I will be happy to walk through it. Jason, what's the first element of adverse possession?
Actual possession.
What do you mean?
If you're there, you're on the land.
What do you have to do? What's the big step you have to take? What's that called?
Open inventory.
No, I'm not there yet. The first step, the first thing you have to do,
Oh, enter the land.
enter. Why is entry so important?
So that it gives proof that you were there.
Okay. What is the consequence of entry? What does that do? What does entry start?
Starts possession.
What does it start as a legal matter?
The action.
More specific. No, don't call out. It's one at a time. That's my only rule. One person at a time. One person at a time. Behave. You got no cookies. Jason. What is the consequence? No, hands down. I'm on Jason. What's the consequence of entry? What does that trigger?
Begins like your statute.
Yes, the statute of limitations, right? Adverse possession is grounded in the idea of a statute of limitation, right? If you are doing something for X period of time, the land might become yours. But when does that statute begin to run? At the point of entry. So entry is actually a very important point, right? Entry defines when your adverse possession begins. Entry also helps you say that you've been acquiring, let's say, the entirety of a plot of land. Let's say you have a huge plot of land. You enter one part, but not the other. You may not be able to claim adverse possession of the part you never entered. All right. So the first element is entry, which is physical. You have to actually walk onto the property. All right. Jose, what's our second element of adverse possession?
You have to be open and notorious.
What does that mean, open and notorious?
That the person that's on the property, I think the claimant adversely can't be doing it in secret, so that
Can't be doing what in secret?
I guess being on the property, living,
It's just standing there enough?
as long as it's open and notorious, as long as it's not, as long as it gives notice in a sense.
So can Mr. Robinson just sit there in the living room in the chair for 3 years and do nothing else, and that's enough?
No.
What does it have to do?
Basically give an opportunity for the owner per se to know, or give them a chance to know that there's somebody.
You're right on the notice part, right? You have to do something to give notice to the true owner. But Anthony, I'm asking a different question. What does the person have to do while he's in the land for 3 years or 5 years or 10 years?
The person has to live in a fashion where the neighbors are aware that they're there. And they have to do it similar to what a
Yes.
homeowner.
Good. Very good. Okay, that's what I was looking for, right? It's not let me put it this way. It may not be enough for Mr. Robinson to just sit on a chair for 3 years, right? The law in Texas and other jurisdictions require you to actually use the land in a positive, productive fashion. Or stated differently, you have to use the land the same way the actual owner would use it, which might involve cultivation, right? If it's a farm, you can't just let the farmland lay, empty, right? So this came up a couple times. There's some landscaping out in front of Miss Robinson's house. Craig, does he have to mow the lawn? Does he have to? I'm being serious. If he really wants to be in adverse possession, does he have to mow the lawn and pull out the weeds and clean up the leaves in the fall? Maybe. Why maybe?
That's something that's maybe.
What about paying property taxes? What about, so it said in the video, no utilities, right? No water, no electricity. Does he need utilities? Can you actually have a house without any utilities for all those years? Can he live? Is that sanitary?
Yeah.
Is it safe? I mean, I'm not being facetious. There are stories where people were squatting houses. They run a hose from next door, right? They run an extension cord and they start fires. It floods. It's really dangerous to do that, right? You might have heard this. So what else does he have to do? Can he just sit there in a chair?
No.
What's he gonna do?
Assume the normal activities.
That's yeah, exactly what I'm looking for. Yeah, so the idea of being open and notorious kind of blends into the other elements, but I want to make this point clear. You can't just sit there, right? You have to use the property in the same manner as a normal owner would. And that might involve landscaping, right? Taking care of the lawn, leaves, right? If there's snow, you have to clean the snow up, right? You can't just let the snow pile up. It might involve paying property taxes. That's what landowners do. They pay their property taxes. You know, keeping the sewage lines clean. I mean, there are things you have to do. Again, and it's very dangerous to live in a house with no utilities. That's asking for a lot. It's not like living on a farm somewhere. This is you need power, you need water. All right, so that's number 2, open and notorious. And the idea of this element is to put the record owner on notice that you're here and you're squatting. So I think Jose said you can't do it in secret. That's exactly correct, right? If you were to sneak onto someone's land and quietly sit in their living room for 3 years without telling anybody, no one knows. I mean, I don't know, it's even possible to just get away with that, but you've not stated a claim for adverse possession. All right. We got 2 Jacobs. All right, Jacob. What's the third element for adverse possession, please? What does that mean, continuous?
You have to use it with regularity.
Good. Okay. The continuous period is something of a statute of limitation, right? What it literally means is if you use the land in an open, notorious fashion for X years, after that point, the original owner can't come back and evict you, right? The limitation period actually extends to the original owner. I mean, that's who it is. It's saying if you fail to bring a claim within X years, you lose. Now, the continuity requirement does not require you to be there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365, right? You have to, again, use the property in the same manner as the record owner would. So if this is like a summer vacation home, you only have to be there over the summer. If it's a ski resort, you only have to be there in the winter, right? You're allowed to go out to work during the day. You're allowed to go out at night. You're allowed to go visit friends on the weekends. So the continuous requirement varies depending on the states, and we'll talk about that in a moment. But you have to do it in the manner in which a regular person would. All right, now Mr. Robinson said 3 years. Everyone heard him say that, right? He said, Mr. Robinson said 3 years. Again, he was in Dallas, so we can talk about Texas law for a few minutes. This is the section of the Texas Code. Let me make it a little bit bigger, right? And in Texas, there are 3 different limitation periods. There's a 3-year limitation period. There's a 5-year limitation period. And there's a 10-year limitation period. Okay, so you ask, well, Josh, of course I want 3 years instead of 10 years, right? Why would I ever want 10 years? How do you get to 3 years? To get to 3 years, you need something called, it's in bold, color of title. Color of title. Zach, what is color of title?
If I recall correctly, color of title means that you have a document saying.
That's exactly right. Yeah, you didn't seem sure about that, right? Color of title refers to some sort of paperwork, and the specifics are not terribly important for now, but it's some sort of paperwork indicating that you own Blackacre, that you own the property, right? The classic example is a fraudulent deed, right? Imagine someone sells you a piece of property and they're a crook, and they give you a deed. It looks legit, right? It looks fine, and it says you own Blackacre. The deed's fraud, right? It was forged document. It's not real. So the law says if you have some sort of paperwork which suggests you're the owner, we're going to reward you with a shorter limitation period, 3 years instead of 5 years, right? Now, if you have color of title, short limitation period. Oh, she's gone. I'll come back to him. Dominic, I had this one semester. A girl sat right there. She went to the bathroom every single time she was up next. It got so annoying. So one time I called her, and the second she walked back and said, "Oh, maybe sit down, just stand right there," and she was on call for a few minutes. So not saying it happened now, but this one semester she drove me crazy because she knew she was coming next. She'd go right to the bathroom, and we just so the hall pass. Tell you, all right. So Dominic, I'll call you this question. Mr. Robinson seemed to think he hit the 3-year statute, right? Because he had that piece of paper, right? He basically just filed an affidavit in the courthouse saying, "This is mine." Do you think that's enough for color of title?
Before I get to that, for the record, I was thinking about doing it.
Oh, you are? Well, as soon as you're off the call, you're welcome to go.
Well, not really sure. Okay.
I mean,
It's just like something they printed off website, filled out himself.
couldn't everyone just do that, what he did? So do you think that's enough for color of title? I don't think it is, right? So with all respect to Mr. Maybe I'm wrong, I don't know. But with all respect to Mr. Robinson, I don't think he had color of title. All he did was he printed out a document saying, "I intend to adversely possess this house." That is not enough in my mind. Maybe a court would disagree with me, but I think that's probably not enough. Yes.
So he printed out the document saying he intended to take the property, but there's no indication that he had utilities, if he was paying property tax or anything.
No. No, and if you look at the next statute, right? So look at the next one, right? This is the 5-year period, right? The 5-year period applies if a person cultivates, uses, or enjoys the property. I think that would probably require utilities and actually using the property as a regular person would. And look at number 2. Pays applicable taxes on the property. Again, I don't think he had any property taxes. I mean, he was only there. The guy was there maybe a week or two, right? After he went in the news, the bank evicted him really quick. So they found a way, got him out real quick. And, talking about open and notorious, he satisfied that easily. He went in the news and said, "Hey, I'm here, everybody." But I don't think he was paying his taxes, at least yet. And the third one, a duly registered deed. If I had to guess what he did might satisfy the duly registered deed, I'm not even positive, right? A lot of people think they know property law and they say, "Oh, I watch on YouTube," right? And they're just making stuff up. So I don't even know if he gets the 5-year period. Maybe. He can maybe squeeze into 5 years. I think it's more likely he goes to the third category, which is the 10-year period. And look here, it says, without a title instrument, right? You got nothing. If you have nothing, you have a 10-year period. So Mr. Robinson probably to make it 3 weeks. I don't think you make it 3 years, right? But the continuous requirement depends on what jurisdiction you're in. I'll tell you what the limitation period is. You don't have to guess, but at least you should know for your own knowledge what the rules are in Texas. All right, everyone with me? All right. Aaron, what's the fourth element of adverse possession? 1, 2, 3, 4. I can see using your fingers.
Hostility.
What do you mean hostility?
Great question.
What's the official title? Hostility is kind of a description of it, but what's the actual name of the fourth element? Shh, I hear the whispers. My vision's bad. My hearing's still good. Well, it's in the book. It's Coolander covered it.
Exclusive possession.
No. Camera? Adverse. What does that mean? Adverse. I'm looking for 3 words. Adverse. No. What's it's in the book. It's not what's it called? The fourth element. Mesa? I'll come back. Mike?
Adverse under a claim of right.
Claim of right. That's what I'm looking for. Adverse is fine, right? That describes it. But the legal term, and I'll come back to Aaron and Tamara and Mesa in a minute. You don't get to skip, especially in a class this small. I can cover everyone. The phrase claim of right is important, right? So Aaron, I'll come back to you. What does claim of right mean?
Well, I think according to the book, it means different things in different places.
Okay.
I think the majority of
Well, generally, what is claim of right describing? I know there are different categories, different types. What is it describing?
the intent of the adverse possession.
Correct. The mindset, the state of mind, the mens rea, if you will, if I can use that word, right? Adverse possession. With adverse possession, your state of mind is very important. What is your state of mind? Are you an aggressive, hostile trespasser, which I think what you both were saying, that's possible. Were you there under a mistake, right? You thought it was yours, but it happened not to be, right? Or maybe you had no state of mind, you had no idea. The state of mind, the claim of right, really does matter. Okay? Now, there are different types of state of minds, which we'll cover later. I want to come back to it. What you have to remember here is that the claim of right refers to the state of mind of the adverse possessor. All right. Questions so far? AJ? Oh.
So they are accepted or adverse?
That refers to the same element. In fact, I prefer claim of right rather than adverse because you can have a good faith standard under the claim of right prong. So I just say claim of right. I think it makes it a little bit easier. 1 second, Greg. And let me make this one very clear for your notes. Students will confuse claim of right with color of title. I promise that half of you will make this mistake on the midterm, right? You will, I can assure you. Please make it very clear in your notes to separate claim of right, which is the fourth element of adverse possession, and color of title, which refers to having some sort of document or some sort of record suggesting that you have a title to the property. Don't confuse them, okay? All right, Craig, go ahead.
So claim of right is one of the cases if you assign tonight the Gorski case, is that correct? You can have a mistake.
We'll get there. Yes.
And regarding the frame of mind of the person, they short said it doesn't matter, is that correct?
That's what the court says.
All right.
And we'll get there in about half an hour.
Okay.
Promise. All right, everyone with me? Okay. All right, well, Chi, since you were in here, I'll come back to you. Facts, please, in the Valkenburgh v. Lutz.
Let's try to adversely possess by building like a shack.
Oh, still, you got to start way earlier. What was going on in this neighborhood? There was a lot of stuff going on in this neighborhood. There was big conflict between the neighbors. So what's going on here?
Let's bought a couple blocks of
van and trying to cross to the,
Huh?
because it's a shortcut to, I guess, the road or something. For a while, the van.
Valkenburgs,
Valkenburgh
great name.
Bought 19 to 22, and Lutz's wanted to keep that pathway so they can traverse through it.
Mhm.
Then the van
Van Valkenburg.
fence,
That
they blocked them off. And the Lutz's tried to adversely possess it by claiming that they had a shack and they did the clearing of the land right there. But the Lutz's originally won, but then got overturned because just merely having a small shack and just shoveling dirt around doesn't mean that like, you have that ownership.
okay. All right. Thank you. So this was a long and complicated litigation. It went on over the course of decades. And there really were two major rounds of litigation. So Tamara, I'll come back to you. The first round of litigation concerned the ability of the Lutzes to walk across this triangle-shaped lot onto the main road. Tamara, what do you call that right to cross across someone's land? What's that called? An easement. One at a time. Yeah, good. One at a time. Yeah, an easement. Correct. Now, generally, how would one acquire an easement? If you want an easement for your neighbor, what's the mature, responsible thing to do? Pay him, right? Pay them, right? You can go to your neighbor and say, "Hi, I want to cross. Can I give you money? Will you let me cross?" And they can say yes, or they can say no. But is that what happened here, Tamara? No, what happened here? Well, before they went to court, what did the Lutzes do on their own? Right. So the Lutzes were trying to use adverse possession to obtain an easement. Right? They're trying to use adverse possession to obtain an easement. There's a name for this, a prescriptive easement. Prescriptive easement. Prescription is a synonym for adverse possessions. It's the same thing. Also called a right of way. You may see that phrase as well, but easement's the better term. We'll do easements in about a month or so, but just as a preview now, if you walk across the same path every day for a decade, and the record owner knows you're doing this and takes no steps to stop you from doing this, you can actually obtain the easement through adverse possession, right? So in the first round of litigation, Mesa, I'll call on you. In the first round of litigation, did the lawyers for the Lutzes say that they acquired the entire lot by adverse possession? The first round of litigation. What did they only claim in the first round of litigation?
I can't remember what they claimed, but they said that they just put that piece of land where they built the house. No?
What did they? No, this is it's in the facts. What did they claim in the first round of litigation? They only sought something very specific.
Well, he said he claimed the prescriptive right.
Okay. So did they seek adverse possession of the entire lot in the first litigation? What did they only seek? Correct. Very good. In the first round litigation, all the Lutzes sought was the prescriptive easement, the right of way to cross the property. If you have a prescriptive easement, can you keep your shack, your garden, all of your other debris? Can you keep the other stuff there? You can't. So what happened in the second round litigation? He did what? Well, I know he put a shack there, right? But what did they claim? What did the Lutzes claim the second round of litigation? Shouldn't what? Well, that's what Van Valkenburgh claimed. I'm asking, what legal claim did the Lutzes bring in the second round of litigation?
Right to use.
What did they claim they had? Why did they claim they had the right to use the land? Well, what's the topic of today's class? What were they claiming? Adverse possession, right? Again, so this matters. In the first litigation, they only claimed the prescriptive easement. In the second litigation, they claimed adverse possession of the entire triangle-shaped lot. All right, everyone with me? All right, so Latricia, let's walk through the elements here, right? Of adverse possession. Was there entry? Did the Lutzes enter this land? Okay. Were they there openly, notoriously? How do we know that? How do we know those open, notorious usage?
They built because they tore down like.
Okay. Didn't they also like get into fights and threaten to arrest each other? Yeah, there was no hiding it, right? There was no hiding it. Okay, that's good. So it was open, notorious. Was Latrice the usage continuous for more than a decade? Yeah, they were there for a lot of years, weren't they? Was Mr. Lutz an aggressive, hostile trespasser? Oh, absolutely. This guy was real hostile, right? He almost started to beat up the kids. So then, Latrice, why did the Lutzes lose? How can they lose? Didn't they check 1, 2, 3, 4, check all the elements?
Because
How did they lose?
so the issue was there sufficient evidence showing that the premises was cultivated or improved?
Okay, you're correct. Okay, so the court focused a lot on whether the land was sufficiently cultivated, that is, used. KC, let me ask this question, please. Why was the Court of Appeals sort of skeptical that the land was cultivated, used enough? There was debris, wasn't taken care of. What about the farm? Didn't they grow some crops, vegetables for neighbors?
Yeah, but it was in a small area.
They weren't using all the soil. All right. So the Court of Appeal said they only used part of the land. There was garbage there, debris. This was not sufficiently cultivated. So, AJ, let me ask you a question, please. Which element of adverse possession does the level of cultivation matter for? Which element does this fit into? Why open and notorious? Why is it the open and notorious prong?
Because it was,
Okay. And so what the court said is they were not using it in the manner that other people were using. Is that right? Okay. I'm sorry. Do you have a name tag up there? Oh, okay. Yeah. And who is the marker? What's your name? I'm sorry. I'll give you a marker. What's your name? Okay. So let me ask you this question, please. Did the Court of Appeals? Oh, thank you for the marker, sir. Did the Court of Appeals get it right? Good catch. Did the Court of Appeals get it right? Is it really the standard that you have to use every inch of soil and that you can't have some garbage in your property? Is that the right standard? Oh, but isn't that what the Court of Appeals said? The Court of Appeals get it right.
My notes are that
The two is to establish practical applications of the time
Mm-hmm.
or in such a manner as to establish guidance and expression.
That's correct. But what I'm asking you is, did the court get it right? Is there a requirement that you have to garden all the property? It's not enough to just garden some of the property.
Exactly.
Okay, why not?
Because you can occupy part of the land, you don't have to occupy all the land.
Ah, what did the dissent say in this point? What did the dissent argue? Always read the dissents, especially in this class. If there's a dissent published, it's probably the better view. All right. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. Sorry, you were right behind me. I walk around a lot. I'm sorry.
So, but why aren't they in court with the town? Like, aren't they trying to adversely possess it from the town?
No, the Van Valkenburgs bought the lot from a tax sale from the town.
No, I mean, the Lutzes, like, like they were the ones that claimed the land, that built on the land.
Oh, you're saying didn't they adversely possess against the government in the first place? All right, so this isn't a reading for next class, but it's very hard to squat against the government. In fact, in most cases, you can't adversely possess against the government. So what they're claiming is that after the tax sale, they acquired it. So, but it's actually a very astute point. Yeah, I get that every couple of years. It's a good question. Nick, let me go to you. What did the dissent argue?
They said that the claim title doesn't use.
Was there a requirement to cultivate every inch of soil?
Says now, that nearly all property prices for lots of cultivated during the period. Survey produced evidence in the property that is cultivated.
Mhm. Okay, very good. Who wrote that? Drink water? I have no idea what that even is. Anyone know who did that? Do you guys need to be separated? My goodness. All right, L'chaim. All right. So thank you, Nick. That's right. The dissent argues, I think, persuasively, that there's no requirement to have to cultivate every inch of the soil. That's never the requirement, right? The majority seems to think that to have a claim of title, right? You need to use all of it, but that's never been the standard. And this is one of those cases where I think the dissent is actually emphatically correct. I think the majority just got it wrong. I think Mr. Lutz checked off all 4 boxes. He has adverse possession of the lot. He should have won. But as you read in the notes after the case, which I trust you read because you should all read the notes, it didn't turn out so well for the Van Valkenburgs, right? Eventually, the Van Valkenburgs made a litigation error, which resulted in their defeat. So the Lutz is basically stuck around there forever. That's how it ended out. All right. Questions on Van Valkenburg v. Lutz? No?
What was the litigation?
What's that?
What was the litigation?
Oh, did you read it in the notes?
Yeah, but you said they got to speak around forever.
All right. Well, the litigation error was actually a fairly arcane point. They appealed the wrong ruling, right? The lower court issued a ruling on something, and then they asked for reconsideration. And they appealed from the reconsideration rather than the initial decision, which means they failed to appeal the right decision. Yeah.
This was the last court, right? This is the Supreme Court in New York.
So let me make this point. In New York, the highest court is called the New York Court of Appeals. The trial court is called the Supreme Court. Blow your mind, right? It's actually now the only state in the country with that rule. The reason why the trial court is called the Supreme Court is because it has supreme or general jurisdiction. Until very recently, Maryland also had the Court of Appeals as the highest court, but Maryland changed it like a week or two ago. It's actually very recently. So New York is now the last court in the nation where the Court of Appeals is the highest court. All right. All right, any other questions on the Valkenburg? Valkenburg. All right, let's do a couple poll questions. See where you guys are in this. Go to. Oops, I'm sorry. Question number 2. Multiple choice. Okay. It's a long question. I'll read it. O owns and has been in possession of a 100-acre farm since 1975. In 1994, A entered the back 40 acres under color of an invalid deed from Z, who had no claim to the land for the entire 100 acres. Since her entry, A has occupied and improved the back 40 acres in the usual manner for the period required by the statute of limitations. So what's the right answer? A acquired all 100 acres by adverse possession. A acquired only the back 40 acres by adverse possession. A has not acquired any land on the farm by adverse possession, or none of the above. Take some time to answer that, please. All right, another 10 seconds. And this one shall be for Brian, I think, is next. All right. Brian, what's your answer here? I'm asking you what your answer is. What'd you put? You put B. Is that what you actually put, or you're just saying that? I can see what you put, so I don't know. What did you put? It's not like a mystery. It's recorded. Okay. Well, why'd you put B? Let's walk through the elements of adverse possession, shall we? So what's the first element of adverse possession? Entry. Okay. Where did A enter? Okay, he entered the back 40 acres. Does the question say that he entered the other 60 acres? No. So Brian, I'll ask you again. Is there entry for the front 60 acres? Are those facts in the question? Are you assuming facts, not evidence?
You have 100 acres.
You're finding the question? What does the question actually say? And which part did he enter? Does the question say he entered the other 60? No. Okay, let's try it again then. So if he doesn't enter the front 60, has he satisfied the element of adverse possession there? Okay, yes, that's the answer. The answer here is B, right? But I can see, actually, most of you got this one, right? I can see why you're sort of fighting it, right? Because isn't all the land together, right? Isn't everything together? When you have 100 acres, a big lot, and you never even step foot on part of it, you're going to have a hard time claiming it through adverse possession, right? Now, yeah, this question is actually not mine. It's on page 92 of the book, so I didn't make this up. I would probably frame it a little bit better, right? But you can presume, right? You can presume that if the question says he only entered the back 40, that's all he entered, and don't presume he ever stepped foot in the other 60, right? Don't assume facts, not evidence, because you'll get the question wrong. Jason? How does what work?
Invalid deed for 100 acres, they only have 40.
Very complicated. It's a mess.
They're not ever going to file for adverse possession because they think they own it anyway.
Right. It gets very messy, and I don't have a good answer for you. If this was actually a real life situation, the back 60 would still belong to, who is it? O. and I'm sorry, the front 60 will still belong to O, and you just have a new neighbor. And basically, you have to treat his other 40 acres if it belongs to A. To be precise, what would probably happen is after the 10-year period lapses, A would seek to quiet title on the entirety of the property. And a court would rule that no, you only have the back 40. And that judicial ruling would effectively modify whatever titles exist. I think that's how it would have to happen. That makes sense, Jason?
I have a question on this.
Yes, sir.
If O owns and has been in possession of the full 100 acres,
Mhm.
and then A enters only the back 40, I mean, isn't he just a trespasser at that point?
Well, he was a trespasser, and I think the question is he stayed there for a decade and he occupied and improved it, right? He satisfied the other elements of the statute. So he wasn't just a trespasser, he made the land better.
Yeah, so O just didn't do.
And O took no steps to evict him. That's correct. Good. Are there questions on this one? All right, let's try question 3. See how we did this one. All right, and I am not going to share the results because apparently people just copy what the majority says. Majority is not always right, my friends. Question 3. 2 contiguous lots as they border each other, 1 and 2, are owned by X and Y respectively. X and Y are not in possession. Lots are conveyed by an invalid deed from Z, a crook, to A. The Z does not own the land. A enters lot 1 and occupies it in the usual manner for the period required by the statute of limitations. So what happens? A acquired lot 1 by adverse possession. A acquired lot 2 by adverse possession. All the above. Let's wait for Jason in a moment. All right, another 5 seconds. All right, Jason, what do you think? Okay, why do you say A?
Because he only entered, A only entered.
Does it matter that the deed describes both lots? Correct. Okay. Remember your elements, my friends. The entry element's very important. And this is an easy way that I can test you on this issue. If I don't describe an entry, it didn't happen. Straight up. If I don't describe an entry, it never happened. And here it says he enters lot number 1. That's it. So the answer is here is A. A acquires only lot 1 through adverse possession.
Does the actual ownership?
Raise your hand, please.
Sorry.
Thank you. Go ahead. Yeah.
Does the actual ownership, so lots 1 and 2, the actual owners, does that not factor into the equation? So if he has a faulty deed that conveys lot 1 and lot 2, and he enters both lots, does he adversely possess both of them?
Against both of them? Yeah. Had he entered lot number 2, he'd be free and clear. But keep in mind though, with the open and notorious one, both of them have to have notice, right? The owner of lot 1 has to have notice that he's being squatted on. The owner of lot 2 has to have notice. So the notice gets actually a lot trickier when there are a lot of people involved. Yeah, is that AJ? I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. A little bit, one more time.
So they're in order, like the claim of right on element 4, that would, because he never entered lot 2.
You never get to claim 4, right? If there's no entry, the clock never starts. And that's why I think I asked someone over here that the consequences of entry. I think it was Jason. The entry starts limitation period. If you never enter, you're always at 0. You never get past the first day. So you need to have that entry.
In reliance of that invalid deed on or title, and there's no possession by either 1 or 2, that doesn't make a difference here, so he's never entered.
Never entered. Yep. Yeah, so Tamara. Is it Tamara? How do you say it? Tamara, okay. Yes, if you want to squat the owner of lot 1, he has to have notice, and the owner of lot 2 has to have notice. They both have to have notice. Yeah, actually, I was just talking to someone yesterday randomly. This person actually wants to do adverse possession against an HOA, in which there's an entire row of like 10 townhomes. What do you, is this? You know this?
No, I'm talking about doing that first, against my.
Well, look, so the notice issue I think is actually very hard because I think each owner would have to have notice. I think so. Yeah, I mean, she was describing something silly like her kids have like a playground equipment that encroaches on someone else's land and they don't really use it. But there was like a number of townhouses in a row. I was like, they probably all need to have notice. So, yeah. You want to adversely possess your HOA?
Well, it's the township.
Oh,
So that's got that weird quasi-government entity.
yeah. This was a question I had before. Adversely possessing against the government is very tricky.
Well, it's not really a government entity, kind of a quasi.
Where is this? Oh, yeah, the Woodlands is weird. Yeah, it's not weird, but it's like a governmental quasi.
Yeah. So
Okay.
my property abuts the preserve. It's like 1,700 acres.
Well, I'll see you in 10 years. We'll see how it turns out. Okay. Did you follow your paperwork, like Mr. Robinson?
No,
Are you cultivating it? Do you have evidence of this? Okay. What else? Yes, Brian. All right, so here, let me level with you all. The elements bleed together, right? If you actually read the Valkenburgh case carefully, the discussion of the using of all the land actually falls under the claim of right, the claim of title element, the fourth element. I think it's probably either open and notorious or continuous. So the elements will often bleed together. So as long as you get the right analysis and maybe you put it like in the wrong element, I can understand, but you have to get the right analysis right. But the elements all bleed together. So think about it. It's your entry must be open and notorious for 10 years with the right state of mind. They all sort of blur together. Yes, Tamara? Yes. You can do whatever you want. You can cite the majority or the dissent. I think those are both fair. You don't have to agree with me either. I'm wrong. I can be wrong. And I think if you read the casebook, the editors think that this case was wrong decided also. So, but what do we know? All right, we're all human. We're all human. We make mistakes. All right, 93%. Very good. Good job. All right. 2 people. Okay. All right. Anything else in this case? All right, so let's do the last case, the case from New Jersey. Manillo v. Gorski. Talia, I think you're not. Oh, sorry, Talia. I'm sorry. Talia. I have a friend named Talia. Talia. Oh, that's why I like the name cards. It makes my life easier. Like the seating charts are actually very hard to use because you're doing like this, and like it's actually very hard to match a square with the person. So I just like these name cards, and it makes. I started doing this like 5 years ago. I'm so happy with it.
Side note on these, do you collect these?
No, you can keep them. Please don't lose them. Keep them with your book. Like people lose them. Like okay, I have a few more, but like I can't keep buying these indefinitely because like, you're adults here. All right. So Talia, let me ask this question. Facts, please, in Manillo v. Gorski.
Yes, so, the plaintiff was in if they had property. And their son, did improvements to their house. And some of this. And it was like that before this happened.
Okay. So.
And they thought the property was theirs.
Good. All right. Very good. So, Giselle, is this a case like Mr. Robinson where someone said, "I am going to be this aggressive trespasser. It's going to be mine." Is that what we have here?
They thought it was, well, they didn't realize that they were on the.
They had no idea. It was a mistake, right? And you can imagine they were just building a staircase only a couple inches over, 15 inches, whatever, right? This was an honest, good faith error. So is that Shanze? Shanze, what was the common law rule, right, for the fourth element, the claim of title, right? What was the common law rule of the state of mind you needed to adversely possess property?
It would be aggressive, standard, the aggressive trespassers.
Correct, right? So think about this case, right? The first three, the other elements are easy, right? Was there entry? Yes. Did they squat for the requisite period of time? Yes. Was it open and notorious? Don't answer that yet. We'll come back to it. But in the fourth element, we have a debate. The common law rule, what was called the Maine doctrine, is a case from Maine, the state of Maine, was called the aggressive trespasser standard. Emma, what is the aggressive trespasser standard?
It's differentiating between if someone mistakenly claims the land and if they continue to do it versus if they mistakenly do it.
What's the state of mind? What state of mind do you need to be an aggressive trespasser? What do you have to have going on in your head? Be aggressive, right?
If I
Anyone else? What do you have to say? In other words, in order to be an aggressive trespasser, what do you have to actually say? You have to say, I think this is mine, maybe not. Is that enough? What do you have to say? It's a very specific message that you're trying to convey. What did Mr. Robinson say? Thinking back to the video we started with the start of class. What did Robinson say? Did he admit that he was the correct owner?
No.
What did he say? It's very important at this point. He's not leaving. Why is he not leaving?
Because he intends to
Good.
acquire access to that.
Yes, that's it. Perfect. Thank you. He's expressing his intent, right? Mr. Rock, you saw him, right? He says, look, I am going to own this in 3 years. I know it wasn't mine. I don't care whose it is. It's going to be mine in 3 years, right? The aggressive trespasser standard is exactly one of hostility. It's bad faith. It's not a mistake of fact. It's not a good faith error. It's saying, this will be mine. He must know that he's trespassing, right? Robinson knew he was a trespasser. It's funny, he put these no trespassing signs, kind of ironic, right? But he knew he was trespassing. To be an aggressive trespasser, you have to know that you're trespassing. And that was a common law rule. So Lance, back down to you, sir. The squatters in this case who built the staircase, right? Were they aggressive trespassers? No, they were not. What was their state of mind? What was their mens rea, you might say?
They thought that was their land, so
It was a mistake. Honest mistake, good faith mistake, right? So under the common law rule, could they acquire this 15-inch plot through adverse possession under the common law rule? No, they were not aggressive. All right, so we're in New Jersey, and I'll give you a preview. This semester, every single case we have from New Jersey reverses the common law rule. Every single one. And I swear, if you go back to last semester, same, right? New Jersey is where the common law goes to die, right? It's true. And I'm from Staten Island. It's basically New Jersey. But every Jersey case is a reverse the common law rule. Same for contracts, right? Torts, right? New Jersey Supreme Court was known to this day as being a court that says common law, whatever, right? So, Alex, what's the criticism the New Jersey court offers for the Maine doctrine, this common law rule for aggressive trespassing? What's the criticism they offer?
They claim that it was undermining the value of.
What's the problem, Alex, with the aggressive trespasser standard?
problem with what's that?
The court discussed at length problems with this doctrine. What problems identify?
I'm not sure.
I'll come back to you. Kirk?
Some problems are whether or not, so whether the injury caused by mistake, essentially, kind of results in,
Why is the aggressive trespasser a problematic rule? The court's very clear on this point.
is it not, is it, not satisfying the open and notorious possession?
Jacob?
It favors someone intentionally doing wrong as opposed to, and disfavors someone who's honest and just mistaken.
Right. This rewards bad doing. It rewards the jerk who comes in and says, screw this is going to be mine. And it punishes the guy acting in good faith. Right? In this case, they were in good faith. They built their staircase. It wasn't like, they were trying to be bad. And the court says, why are we rewarding the wrongdoer but punishing the honest landowner? Okay. So, Alex, what did the court do with this common law main doctrine? What did the court do with it?
Sidelined it?
What do you mean sidelined it? Did you read the case?
Yeah.
Okay. What did they do with this doctrine? Kirk, what did they do with this doctrine?
I mean, essentially they, they overruled it in New Jersey,
And what they replace it with?
replaced it with, they're holding that, the holding regarding that kind of like the minor encroachment.
The what?
Minor encroachment.
I'm not there yet. What standard did they replace the hostile aggressive trespasser standard with? Alex, you know? What's the Connecticut doctrine?
And no cases that for.
No, don't read.
Well, basically, if there's not a mistake with bad intent, that
What's the standard of mind? What's the state of mind under the Connecticut rule?
the other mistake and
Victor?
There is no standard of mind for the Connecticut one. They don't require it to be state of mind for the Connecticut doctrine, and rather, but under the Connecticut doctrine, 18.5.
AP Africa possession. Okay. Well, I think it's actually a good faith standard, but there's not actually much of a difference. So let's just talk about this, right? Victor, what's the good faith standard?
Whenever you make a mistake in good faith, you think that, in this case, the guy thought that, part of the land was his, so he built his encroachment onto it.
Okay. Okay, good. And then, Jason, what's the objective standard?
We only look at the actions that you do.
Does it matter what was in your head?
I'm sorry.
With the objective standard, does it matter what's in your head? No. Okay, good. So we have a total of 3 different standards, right? You have the aggressive, hostile trespasser standard. This is the main rule. This is the common law rule. If you're curious, this is a rule that Texas still applies to this day. So, Mike, if you want to be aggressive, DB, aggressive. Sorry, good. Sorry. No one gets it. Bring it on. So you have the hostile, aggressive trespasser standard. You have number 2, the good faith standard, which means you thought it was yours, but you were mistaken. Okay? Connecticut rule, good faith standard. New Jersey adopts a good faith standard. They overrule the common law. There's also an objective standard, which is not really used in many places, but it says we don't even care what you're thinking. Whether you're under the good faith standard or the objective standard, it's very easy to satisfy. In fact, you might say adverse possession goes from 4 elements to 3, right? If you're in a jurisdiction with the good faith standard, it doesn't really matter what the claim of right is because you're going to satisfy. As long as you enter, you're open and notorious for continuous period, you're probably home free. So the court here basically watered down adverse possession to a 3-element test. So I think Tamer asked me a few minutes ago, can I follow the majority of the dissent? What I would say is that the rules in New Jersey are always outliers. And I would not treat New Jersey law as, oh, Aaron's excited now, as authoritative. Yes, sir.
Is this because you're a New Yorker?
Oh, no, it's not because I'm a New Yorker. It's because New Jersey courts are so out of whack with the other states. I have nothing against New Jersey. I spent a lot of my childhood there. I spent a lot of time there. I fly to Newark more than I'd like to count. Jersey thing, you wouldn't get it. All right. So that is the 4th element, right, where the court basically overrules. All right. So Alex, let's go back to the 2nd element, open and notorious. What does the court say about the open and notorious element?
Whether it's satisfied or like the step satisfying it or
How big was the encroachment in this case? Okay. Was that minor encroachment sufficient to put the neighbors on notice of the encroachment? What did the court say? Jose, what did the court say? Was that minor encroachment enough to put neighbors on notice? Why not?
Because it wasn't like apparent to like visibly.
What would need to be done in order to even notice this encroachment was existing? What would you need to do? How would anyone even know the sidewalk is 15 inches over? What would you have to do? What's that thing called?
Like, I'm sorry, can you repeat the thing?
Stop whispering it, right? How would you, I hear everything. How would you even know that there's an encroachment of only 15 inches? What would you have to hire? Who would you have to hire? You have to bring someone, an expert. What would you have to actually do?
Like a surveyor.
Survey. Yeah, exactly right. You have to conduct a survey. Everyone know what a survey is, right? Person who measures with very precise tools where the boundaries are for a plot of land. Okay. So, Anthony, did the court find this was an open and notorious squatting here? Why not?
Well, they wound up remanding it back to the trial.
Good, good, right? But is the guy going to win on the remand?
They're adopting the good faith.
But will there be open and notorious elements satisfied in the remand?
Not if the landlord doesn't have actual knowledge of the occurrence.
Okay, Craig, what do you think?
No,
Why not?
because it wasn't open to employees.
Yeah, that's right. All right, so this is a mixed bag, right? The New Jersey court overrules the main doctrine. They say we're going to take a good faith standard, but we're going to modify the open and notorious prong. That if there's some sort of minor encroachment that is not visible to the naked eye, there's no notice. And because there's no notice, guys are going to lose, right? The squatter cannot prevail. And in fact, on remand, they just settled it for $250. Imagine they could have resolved this entire case at the outset for $200, right? But instead, they litigated all the way to the Supreme Court of the state. Just think about this for a minute. These are next door neighbors. And every day when you go to work and you come home, you're seeing this guy that you hate, you're litigating. That's got to just be awful, right? It's a Jersey thing. What can I say? Was that?
So this case should be in the Luxembourg case.
Yeah. Yeah, again, the reason why we have property is because neighbors hate each other and they fight and they don't resolve things amicably. If people were sensible and resolve things on their own, your case book would be very thin. Right? There would not be a lot of cases if people were normal. This entire first week of class is neighbors who hate each other, right? Okay. So again, the holding of this case is the court abandons the aggressive hostile trespasser standard. They adopt the good faith standard. But they modify the open and notorious prong to say that if the encroachment is not visible to the naked eye, there's not sufficient notice to the property owner. All right, questions on Manillo? I hope this gave you a flavor of what to expect this semester. The cookies are the sweet, then comes, I guess, the bitter, I suppose. It's true, but especially in a class this small, you have to be ready every class. This is what we expect. Okay, any questions? All right, no, not done. I have 2 minutes left, right? Actually, that clock is slow. Whoever that clock slow is very bad. I have 7:13 on my clock. I like all of you just to take a moment, and I'll do this in a minute. What I call the takeaway question. Just a short answer, 140 characters. What do you take away from today's class? What kind of questions you have? Something you don't get, I can look at this later. I'll address it later. All right. But again, your 4 elements of adverse possession. You have entry. Be very careful at entry, right? Be very careful at entry and make sure you're entering the right part of the property. You know what you're entering. With open and notorious, here I think New Jersey court may actually be in the right chance. Is there sufficient notice to people that you're squatting? With continuous, it's not enough to be on the property. You have to use it in the manner in which the real person is using continuously for a decade. And then what's your claim of right? I'm sorry, claim of title. Is it aggressive trespasser or is it good faith? All right, there you go. All right, thank you all. And I will just wait for a few minutes and I'll see you on Tuesday. And do you have tax after this, Kevin? Yamamoto? Government? Okay, government. Okay, good.